Alright, brake chapter out of the maintenance manual, section 2, handbrakes, rereading it. Purpose of all railway cars must be equipped with a suitable means of slowing down and stopping the car by hand when cars are being switched in the yards. They are frequently in motion with no locomotive coupled to them. A handbrake is necessary for the trainman or to control these cars. There are many types of handbrakes. Each of them must be operational requirements. The handbrakes are illustrated and described in the following paragraphs. B. The parts. The main requirements for the handbrake are is capable of stopping the car. That is most operating harmony with the air brake. Operating harmony means that the handbrake can be used and it's used to operate the same foundation. Brake levers rigging is the air brake with the handbrake will always install with the B end of the car. That is the end of the brake piston moves. Usually the handbrake is connected with the cylinder level adjacent with the brake piston connection with some equivalent point. In general, the handbrake equipment consists of the hand wheel, hand lever, and handbrake shaft handbrake connections with an incline, including rods, chains connection with the handbrake shaft with brake levers. In some cases, other parts such as gear pawls or bell cranks are used. Types. The handbrake operated brakes include the ordinary straight shaft handbrake equipped with a hand wheel at the top in which turn with the wind to wind the brake chain on the off the lower end of the shaft. Figure 8.5. The ratchet type of the brake is in which the lever the ratchet are employed installed. Instead of ordinary hand wheel, the drum and one cone type one employs the ratchet device. The geared brake, which are the gears that existed in the application power. Figure 86. The screw type in which the brake shaft is turned begins with the screw of the worm or in gear, but the brake is applied means for the crank and toggle. 4. Classification. Type of the handbrake used on the car further classified with either as horizontal or vertical. The designated use will depend upon position of hand wheel. For example, the gear type of the hand wheel is horizontal. The handbrake was designated as a horizontal geared type handbrake. If the hand wheel is vertical gear type. Figure 8.8 illustrates the vertical lever gear handbrake. The type is designed for mounting ends of the gondola freight cars. Figure 8.6 illustrates vertical wheel type gear handbrake, which is horizontal type. With the horizontal type of the bracket, it is possible to possible to transmit braking force directly from the hand wheel to the vertical shaft. The evidence for the short shaft type of the equipment. However, the vertical type system, the brake enforcement applied initially horizontal directly. Some mediums, such as gearing, it is necessary to change the direction of the force in horizontal vertical so that it transmits a point below the level of the underframe. Use. Within the horizontal brake mentioned above, the braking force's initial vertical direction can be transmitted to the bottom of the car at a vertical shaft. A gear-type horizontal handbrake is used with the braking force generally transmitted through using a third vertical shaft. However, the vertical brake of the direction of application of the force change with the horizontal to vertical length of the chain connected to the vertical shaft normally is used as transmitted. 8.5 shows a straight handbrake. 8.6 shows a vertical gear type handbrake shown on the retainer. The braking force beneath the car when straight shaft is used, it will rotate. The hand wheel is turned when the braking force when the straight shaft is used, it will rotate as the hand wheel is turned. The chain is used, then it will rise upon the brake application. When a small shaft the drum, it will lower upon brake release. Thus unwinding when the brake force reaches the power point below the level underframe. It must change the direction to connect the foundation brake rigging levels rods to operating brake shoes. 8.5 Early straight shaft design. The straight shaft design consists of a hand wheel on the hand lever shaft running vertically along the end of the car and anchored to a bracket on the underframe. The horizontal brake of the chain fastened to the end of the vertical shaft. The gear or the pawl, usually near the top of the vertical shaft, permit equipment from the backing. When the hand wheel is turned with the apply of the brakes, the shaft of the gear turned with the pawl engages each tooth of the gear, preventing backing of it. Simultaneously, the horizontal brake chain winds around the turning shaft and applies the brakes. To release the brakes, the pawl should be disengaged and the hand wheel will turn to the opposite direction to permit the chain unwinding. The vertical shaft, a variation of straight shafts type and then bodied with the same principle with the gear type, is to have the end of the shaft anchored to the underframe. With a spur gear installed with the shaft, sometimes the shaft maintenance may be bent to the extent that the brake is inoperative. When bent shaft is known if the brake should be tested to see whether whether the bend is prohibitive, although also where the chain winds around the shaft, the chain may be properly secured at the bottom of the underframe. The ratchet wheel and pawl wheel exposed should be inspected to see that both the wheel pawl are secured. They operate properly, the handbrake in any position, and the brake releases properly when the pawl is released. Figure 8.7 shows a typical horizontal type handbrake. Figure 8 shows a vertical lever type geared handbrake. Alright, B, geared handbrakes. Geared handbrakes are three type: horizontal, vertical, and lever. All types are operating similar to such a vertical lever type. Handbrake operates in harmony with the power brake design and such that when the force is applied with the brake cylinder lever at the brake piston connection, it permits the movement of not less than 14 inches. Also, with the brake inches of the full release position, no excess slack in the hand chain and other connections. The brake wheel and drum are arranged so that both revolve when the handbrake is applied and gradually released. In standard 1/16 of an inch hand chains and minimum 3/4 inch diameter rods used. Alright, 8.6 maintenance. Lubrication. When a car on the shop of the repair tracks periodic attention to the air brakes, the geared handbrake mechanism and connections. Must also be inspected and tested. Lubricated brakes inoperative because of the lack of lubrication will be cleaned to permit oil and grease from each movable parts. Mechanical causes. When the brakes are found to be inoperative because of the mechanical cause, the defective part must be removed and replaced. Brakes that cannot be repaired at the shop of the repair tracks or those removed from demolition cars shall be sent to reclamation points. Part of one type of the brake should be not to be used to replace the part of another type. Welding or brazing. Welding or brazing mechanical parts or geared handbrakes is prohibited. However, the worn holes and pads on front and rear housing plates may be built in electrical welding to provide a proper seating on the bushing over the collars. Bushing may be tack welded in front of the rear of the housing plates to prevent loss of turning and wearing of large holes in either plate. Chain. Vertical or horizontal handbrakes chains should be inspected to ensure that they are securely pinned or anchored to each end of the respective operating parts. Any loose connection should be remedied immediately. Careful inspection shall be made to see that the handbrake chain's connections dragging on the car axles, corrective action taken, constant contact movement of the handbrake chains resisting on the car axles result in chains being worn through as well as the braided over the axle surface. Situation can be dangerous, particularly on the tank cars loaded with flammable materials. E. The bell crank. If the particular handbrake system employs a bell crank, the bell crank must be secure and should pivot freely. The braking holding over the bell crank must also be secure. That if the bell crank is bent, it might be possible to be straightened without impairing its operating efficiency. However, if the bend is pronounced off and the bell crank is cracked or broken, the crank must be removed and replaced with a new one. When the small chain shaft secured with the brake secured in a bracket fastened to the underframe is used with the gear on the small shaft meshes with the gear on the vertical brake shaft. These gears should be inspected with the proper mesh from the cracked with the bottom of the teeth and cracked with the broken gears. The gears may be properly fastened in the respective shaft. The shaft themselves should be secure and not bent, broken, cracked or broken. Cracked or broken shaft will eventually damage the gears and gear teeth, with making the handbrake inoperative. Any damage to the shaft should be immediately repaired by the repair or by the replacement of new parts. Alright, F. Connection of foundation brake rigging. At the point of the handbrake equipped to connect with the foundation brake rigging, a little plate must be present, allow the leverage of the free movement of the car and easy movement of the handbrake is applied. Gearing housing must be securely in position with the car. Any missing of the loosing holding parts must be tightened and replaced. The handbrake should be operated to see whether they are in stiffness, extreme slack, or extreme slack in operation. If there is evidence of either, this must be determined that the cause is not the sum of the other part of the equipment, and no other defects can be located. But the gearbox should be opened, its part inspected, and badly worn, damaged parts should be replaced. Any loose parts should be tightened frequently when the defects are located with the gear housing. The best procedure to remove the entire housing from the car and install a new housing, sending the defective one to the shop repairs. 8. Safety appliances. All appliances such as brake steps, handholds, brake wheels, ratchet pawls, etc. required for the safe, proper operation of handbrakes equipment must be inspected frequently. Any defects must be remedied immediately. Section 3. Air brakes.